Welcome to our session today. I'm really privileged to be joined here on stage by Jonathan Olsen from Kroger, and he will introduce himself in a moment. Now you can hear me, I hope. So he has some really exciting information to share about his journey on how he is revolutionizing fresh operations. Before we dive in, though, to where we are on the Kroger journey, I do want to share a little bit about the size and the opportunity for waste reduction. So we recently engaged with the CEBR to try and quantify globally what that is. And I'm curious for your perspective. So the first question is to you. How many of you think that the food waste opportunity, we'll call it that, is greater than $100 billion? Raise your hand. Okay. Greater than 400 billion. Awesome. Great. It is. The food waste value opportunity is $540 billion. So again, this is significant for us as an industry to understand where and how we can use that opportunity, not just to improve the economics, but also understand how we can grow sales. In fact, the cost of food waste across a business is equivalent to 33% of its revenue. And you can't fix what you can't see. So one of the biggest challenges in this study, where we talked to 3,500 leaders globally in the industry, is that in many cases, these are estimates. They're actually likely worse than what they actually see. So in many places, we're producing things, taking the time, taking the energy, bringing it to market, just to have that not be an opportunity to sell and end up as waste. Paul Pullman states, it is not a cost, it is one of the greatest innovation and growth opportunities of our time. And fundamentally, we're looking at so many different types of technology that can help us improve that. And leading the way by leveraging RFID is Jonathan. And I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your role at Kroger. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Julie, for the kind introduction. My name is Jonathan Olsen. I help shape strategy around in-stock and innovation at the Kroger Company. And really, my team focuses on bringing technology, process, and data together to help us deliver every single day for our customers. And I would say there's a lot of things that probably I'm passionate about that help get me out of bed in the morning, but probably the biggest one is that when we get this right, when we get this combination of availability and waste reduction right, it's a fantastic experience. And I'm really proud that we can do that and really drive a better experience for our customers every day, but also a better workday for our associates. So,
fantastic. Great. Well, let's dig in a little bit about what that looks like for your associates and for your customers. So we know that fresh is central to your brand promise for Fresh for Everyone. Yep. Tell me about how this initiative drives that for you and your team.
No, that's a great question. So the Fresh for Everyone tagline and our Zero Hunger, Zero Waste initiative are not aspirational concepts. These are really operational commitments. And we have a real responsibility to make sure the right product shows up at our stores in the right condition at the right time, and we minimize waste across the system. So really, this is what my team focuses on, is building the tools, the processes, and the visibility so we can execute against that promise and that commitment every single day. I will say also at the heart of that, our ability to do so is inventory accuracy. And traditionally, inventory accuracy has been very challenging in our fresh departments. For those of you that are close to the grocery business, you understand that very well. And that's really where we're leaning in. And on our journey so far, RFID has really been a really key in solving and closing that gap.
Fantastic. So I've been in the sensor and RFID space since 2009, I think, and privileged to work at Avery, Dennison, where it's not just about the technology, but how do you integrate it from a packaging and materials perspective, but also into the process. So we've been on this journey for several years. It's not just about the technology, it's also about the outcomes and the people. So talk to me a bit about your journey for using RFID and Fresh, what that looks like, and what you learned along the way.
Yeah, so we definitely began intentionally in the fresh department. As I mentioned, managing fresh is probably one of the more challenging aspects of managing inventory in a grocery store. Um, from there, it's also one of the highest customer impact areas. So being fresh in the right department at the right time can really build trust with your customer base. So that's where we've been focused on. And really, when we started, we focused less on the technology and more around understanding could the technology fit within the workflow of our associates' day. We wanted to kind of ensure we were designing failure out of the environment and allowing our associates to execute consistently in a similar manner, likely a slightly different, but we didn't want the focus to be solely on the technology. So that's really kind of how we started. I'll say we've seen meaningful improvements, and whether that's in on-shelf availability, whether that's in waste reduction. Obviously, our associates feel a time savings, and they appreciate that. And then just as important, RFID has enabled us to be able to deliver for our customers more consistently. So it's really been a great journey. It certainly hasn't been a linear journey. We've had ups and downs. We've had learnings. We've had some chances to pull back, check and adjust, ensure that we understand what problem we're trying to solve for the associate. But it's been a great journey, and we're really appreciative of Julie and the team's support to this point.
Yeah, maybe we can, for the sake of the audience, it's very easy to look back and think about those ups and downs when you're in them. It can be part of the process. So any parts of that journey that you want to share? We've worked on multiple categories, all in fresh. Where have you learned the most, or where have we really seen the biggest opportunity together?
Sure. There's always some areas where certain packaging may challenge an RFID frequency wave, but I'd really put it back towards the associate and say, how are we fitting into the associate's routine? Is this the easiest way to accomplish the outcome that we're after? Does the associate have a voice in the process transformation? So we always like to ensure that we're not just collecting data quantitatively. We're having a lot of qualitative time with our associates and understanding what's working for them, and what may work for a specific department leader may not work for their backup or their key person when they're not there. So we want to understand what that workday looks like and if it's different for each of those individuals. I'd also say sometimes, less stores is enough. So starting small is helpful. I've always asked and wondered, when do you know the right time to expand to more stores with a pilot? I had some lean coaches years ago, and they really shared some great advice, and it was around when your learning starts decreasing, it's probably time to go to more stores. And I'd also say when you stop learning things you didn't know that you didn't know. So you always go in with a mindset, questions that you want to answer. Always there'll be areas that pop up saying, I didn't think about that. That wasn't on my radar, or that's interesting. How do we think about that differently? Once those start to decline as well, then you're probably ready to move on to more stores.
Fantastic. Which is exciting. And it's interesting because none of this is happening in isolation either, right? Mm-hmm. So that's part of the bigger equation. It is a pretty exciting time to be alive. How many of you have seen any sessions about AI or are looking at agentic opportunities the next decade? Yeah, we got some hands up in the air. And so what's really interesting about right now is kind of thinking about what you said. There's a process here around how to fit it into what you're trying to achieve for your customers, mm-hmm. what really benefits your associates, and then foundationally, what is the opportunity when you have more frequent, accurate data in categories like bakery? What does that do for you, and how do you think that evolves as the broader digital models evolve?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think really our next leg of our journey is around scale, integration, and intelligence. So scaling current solutions, ensuring that we're across all our footprints, across all our 2,700 stores, integrating into other new areas of the store, different commodities, different departments, and then layering on intelligence. So when the intelligence can help inform what decisions should be made in near real time, I think that's a huge key and a huge unlock. And then you start creating building blocks of stores, of areas of the country, and partnering and layering on that data and kind of moving it upwards to the supplier level. And we really start to see an opportunity to collaborate more deeply and understand what are these holistic challenges that we can really understand more closely and more intimately. And then once we do that, we can start countermeasures and designing against it, and then measuring and seeing if we're making a difference together. But that's really one of the most exciting parts for me.
Fantastic. And when we do this well, what does it mean for us as shoppers at Kroger?
Well, I think we're all shoppers, whether we're in a Kroger market or not, but I think we're always looking for the freshest product. We're not always shopping for dinner tonight. We may be shopping dinner for tomorrow, or we may be shopping for the next 3 nights dinner. And we want that product to last and be just as healthy and nutritious as the day that we purchased it, if we were going to purchase it and consume it that day. So I think we all know what it looks like. I think it's important also to ensure that we have the right variety of product too, and we're making those improvements across the entire assortment.
Which is really exciting. And going back to some of the findings in the broader report, I mean, it is a really big opportunity, but of course we still want the shopping experience to be valuable, right? And so what is that balance between healthy shelves and making sure you sell through things before they go bad?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
No, that's a great question. So I always, you always typically hear that food waste is a cost of doing business. And I would say that's traditional thinking, and it will take time to kind of move that needle and think about that differently. I would say with Kroger's determination around our Zero Hunger Waste initiatives and our Fresh for Everyone, plus the addition of some really emerging technology used in different ways, so technology that's kind of mature but being used in different ways, we can really precisely understand opportunities in a different way, and then hopefully see them and act on them at a speed that matters. So that's really part of what gets me excited as well.
Which is great. And if you think about that across the broader supply chain and globally, we have a lot of work to do, but taking that first step really matters. And I think the interesting part here too is technology is evolving rapidly. Many industries have adopted quite a bit of automation across the food supply chain globally. The fact that there's still a third that is in this inefficiency bucket. It's not great if you're a Sigma fan, right? But in the end, I think there's a significant opportunity for us to get more efficient. And shrink and swell are never areas that anyone really likes to talk about or negotiate. If we can find a way to mitigate that, there's a lot of opportunity on the top line and the bottom line. So what's next then for Kroger? Where do you think about taking sensors, RFID or other sensors into your operations?
Yeah, I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but this scale, integrate, and layer on intelligence, I think is really spot on. I think you're probably seeing and talking to a lot of folks, and maybe you're part of a company that is focused on generative or agentic AI today, but really I see that becoming a key differentiator, those that can integrate that into their sensor technologies with optimized processes. I think really is just going to set up a win-win situation to understand when problems occur and then react to them at a speed that matters. So, and if anyone in here, has a company that supports that type of intelligence, we would love to certainly talk to you.
Fantastic. Homework. All right. Well, and then the other piece we talked about is this is something that's happening every day in all of the stores. So going back to scale, going back to some of the ups and downs too, what are some of the learnings and where does it matter when you think about adopting new technology? What is the role of partnerships, the learning process? What does that look like for you, and what guidance would you have for others on this journey?
Yeah, that's great. I would, always start with the problem you're trying to solve. And then I'd probably just reconfirm that ensuring that you understand that is truly the problem, or is that a symptom of another problem? So I think once you understand at a root cause level what is kind of the pain point, and then I think you want to connect with your people. Your people may be in a store, or maybe we're talking about our people and our teammates upstream in supply chain. But I think you want to understand the people impact, the people purpose. And then I think really understanding the operational pain points that will help these individuals execute more consistently or freely. That's a really big one. I'd say on our journey too, we are, we probably had some preconceptions around, the value of tagging at a store level versus upstream in our supply chain. We're continuing to vet that out. Obviously, there's some challenges with different water content and different packaging and sizing. I think the technology is evolving at a really fast rate, so some of those are being solved quickly. And then it's somewhere also where the retailer may need to meet the supplier in the middle. So we may get certain tag sensing rates if the tag is placed in this corner of a product, but we may have a better kind of read rate if it's placed in a different spot on the product. That may change how it's perceived by the customer because the whole packaging may need to be realigned. But that is certainly an area that we've shared that we're open on collaborating with our suppliers. We'll meet the supplier in the middle, whether it's this case or in honestly some other technology use cases we're working on to help make their solutions maybe even faster out of the gate, more robust, trying to design failure out of a false positive, any of those scenarios. So we're certainly open to looking at that differently, but those are just a few thoughts.
Yeah, and that's been an interesting part of the journey, right? We can put the barcode anywhere. It took us a decade to really get to ubiquity on the barcode, but now we are all in on it and looking at this differently as partners. We have looked at what's the right placement. How do you think about it, not just in one, but across the variables of different store formats, different associates with different levels of training. How do you make it as seamless as possible, maintain the merchandising, and get the results that really flow through for the business case?
Yeah, I would say, hold yourself to a high standard as you're working through maybe your proof of technology or your proof of concept or your proof of economics piloting model. Ensure that you have the right toll gates. The data-driven toll gates are needed. Your qualitative toll gates are also needed. And then also too, what you test and pilot in one market, at least for us when we're across the entire country, may not always drive the same outcome in a different market. So ensuring your piloting model is spread across a couple different operating markets, at least for us, that's been helpful because there are definitely some regional nuances that we've been able to tease out. And the sooner you can get ahead of that, maybe the sooner you can kind of design and think through that. And maybe even bring in the leadership from those regional areas to understand how we might approach this problem in a different way. But always pilot with intent, keep things simple. And then I think for us too, our RFID journey, it's really about creating a operational commitment, not necessarily like an IT project. So what kind of support do you have across your organization? Do your senior leaders understand the value proposition? How are we managing up to the top highest levels to ensure that they're advocates and they understand? I love learning by doing, so I'd love to go get my hands dirty. So that may be me reaching out to a senior leader and doing a process with them, bringing them an example of a tag, or at least keeping them updated on some of the other outcomes that can occur, potentially with, this one unlock creates another unlock, which allows some sort of, e-commerce assortment opportunity that maybe wasn't really kind of top of mind. So certainly there's an educational awareness journey that needs to be partnered with this change as well.
Which is really interesting, right? Because one of the questions, and I'll get there in a minute, but across this journey, we had a lot of learnings with the different layers of expertise around starting at the beginning, going, what do we expect to happen, and then what do we actually see from our, RFID has been around for a while and has really had, been in apparel deep for quite some time, and then starting this journey as being one of the first to really pioneer in the bakery. There were a lot of things we expected and were unexpected. There weren't even technology or merchandising, but about people. And so maybe you could speak a little bit about the process for a new associate, but also what's been their response to the new process.
Yeah, overall, the response is amazing. So if you've ever spent any time in a bakery department, that was one of the first areas we went into, you'll realize there's a lot to do. And oftentimes, everyone is really focused on that next task. We're baking product, we're thawing product, we're prepping for today, but we're also prepping for tomorrow. So there's a multitude of different tasks and activities occurring. And this ensures one of the more challenging tasks of getting a starting inventory count can be done in minutes rather than hours. And that's a real story. in a typical store, it was taking over an hour, up towards an hour and a half to complete some of these starting activities. That starting base count is used in our production tools that we feed into them with a forecast and some other data to create really a baker's list for the day and a production list. So from a time-saving standpoint, who wouldn't love to have an hour back in your day? I think we all would. But really just the confidence that they can have, maybe when they're not there, and like I said, maybe they're on vacation, maybe there's a backup there. It's really comforting to know that the consistency for our customer, will not degrade at all. So, that's been part of it. I think we're also looking too, I think you start oftentimes with kind of a wanding journey where you have a sled and you're looking to kind of paint a certain area. I would say the first time I picked up a sled and I wanded, my second question was, how else can we do this, right? Like, this is a lot of work. I'm going to switch arms, once I get to over here. So then the journey continues and we start talking about how can we passively read tags? How can we use other mobile tools to read tags? And we're playing out some of those scenarios today in different pilots across the country.
It's funny, right? Because the wanding, it's still a little bit better than hunting and pecking for all of the dates, right?
It doesn't take long to want more and better.
Want more and better is part of this, right? So the foundational data, which you just mentioned around what's the assortment, making sure it's on the floor at the right time, and then how do you think about that long term for production planning or dynamic pricing, all the other opportunities that are out there. Okay, great. Well, one other question is, why now? Why this technology and why now?
That's a great question. So, the technology's been around a while. This is not necessarily new emerging technology. I would say some of the technology is changing around some of the prior limitations around water or packaging. So that's exciting. I would also say, sometimes there's just a movement where you need to try something different. For those of you that are familiar with the Roger Bannister story, no one had broken a 4-minute mile until he set out to do it. And then what happened right after Roger accomplished that? There you go. Everyone broke the 4-minute mile. So there's this kind of mental barrier. Maybe we stop thinking about things in a certain way. And Roger told us and showed us that you just need to do it. And then the art of the possible really opens up. So I think there's some of that. I think there's some of the technology evolving to use different use cases. Obviously, economies of scale can drive some costs down too. But I'll also say that traditionally, managing fresh has always been very difficult, and we've been using and approaching it from a traditional method perspective, saying, could we do it this way? Could we do it that way? Really incremental, iterative changes. So this kind of big change was worth it, and we're excited to continue to learn more. We're going to fail as well, just to be fair and humble. We have our fair share of mistakes. We'll never make a mistake twice. That's kind of one of the mantras for my team. But we'll learn, we'll check, adjust, we'll adapt, and we'll keep going. And really, partnering with the right suppliers, partnering with the right technology providers, and including maybe your own in-house providers, I think is crucial. But really, we're all in it together. I think we probably haven't solved many roadblocks in a silo. We've really kind of pulled it up together and said, what are some different ways we can think about this? And Julie and our team have been great with that.
Thanks, Jonathan.
You bet.
All right, good. Well, let's talk about the future. So where is it going, and what advice do you have for anyone that's looking at this as an opportunity for their next step as well?
Yeah, I would say learn from your peers. Reach out to your peers. From a RFID perspective, there's a great group at the University of Auburn that is really advocates and champions for RFID across the industry. And there may be some folks here, and I'm sure there are. But really, they help set the standards. When a new tag is created for a specific situation, they can help test it. They can help approve it or certify it, so to ensure that it's working correctly. You certainly wouldn't want to deploy this type of solution and then have tag failures. That's going to be a huge concern. So ensuring that the technology is appropriate and is confirmed to meet the use case that you're using it for is big. Even if you're just curious about learning about RFID and how other retailers have used it, I can tell you I I spent some time down there with the team. There were a lot of other, not just retailers, just businesses in general, sharing their journey on how they use RFID and what problems they were trying to solve. What was the business case like, and what were the drivers that they used to say, hey, this is worth getting after, was incredibly helpful. In those environments as well, you're going to meet some other folks maybe in your industry, and you can certainly have a lot of great conversation with them and understand their journey. Everyone's journey is going to be a little different. And those are probably a couple of great ones. Go see it, touch it, feel it, understand it. There's probably some great YouTube videos you could even get a Primer 101 course on. That's not a bad place to start if RFID is kind of new to you today, and you wanted to learn something before the end of the day. But those would be a couple tidbits.
Yeah, and we did a lot of hands-on in the store too, right, together. So I think that's part of the journey of exploration. So good. 10 years from now, though. All right. So this is fairly new, right? So we've been in apparel for some time. What's the mature grocery segment look like with this technology at scale?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think you're going to find more retailers across fresh. I think the ambient space will be covered. I think some of you may be surprised how many items are already coming in tagged. Actually walked around one of our large format stores and found 1,000 items that we never would have guessed were already being tagged. I think you'll also identify other ways to autonomously or passively collect that data. So kind of the days of an associate with a device who has to walk somewhere and do something, I think you're going to see that data being captured passively. I think you're going to see it layered on with intelligence. I think you're going to see it handed off to certain individuals, maybe within the four walls or in a DC or in a corporate office, or shared with a strategic supplier in a new and different ways. I think just opening up this data in new and different ways is going to be wildly transparent in our operations. I think we'll have more opportunities to collaborate on where those pain points are, and I think we'll drive a better outcome for the customer. In the end, this is about ensuring we keep food out of landfills. This is ensuring we sell all the food we can, and when we can't, we look for other exit strategies that benefit our communities. And then, in the last case, we're having fresher days of life on our product. So if you don't want to use that romaine lettuce tonight, you can use it tomorrow, the next day, or 3 days from now, and it still is fresh, it's still crisp, and still has the same nutritious value. So that's Jonathan's perspective. I'm sure there's others, but that's kind of how I see the future.
Oh, that's it. We talked about you can't fix what you can't see. And in the end, as consumers, we're getting more and more demanding around what information we want about the products around us. And ideally, long term, those products can work on our behalf and tell us what to cook for dinner when.
I love that.
Fantastic. Any final words of guidance for the audience?
No, I think just to pay it forward, there's definitely been others that have helped our team on our journey. We're certainly willing to talk and meet and share our mistakes so you don't make them again, but also where we found success. So feel free to reach out, whether it's after the event or after the conference in general. So thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, perfect. So one more thing. If you are interested, if you have the 540 billion reasons to learn about other opportunities inside the supply chain for food waste, the codes up here, you can see the whole report. There's a lot of really great insights in there from across the industry. I think in the end, the most important piece here, I heard progress over perfection, really having strong partners that understand both how the technology works, but how to also scale it with high fidelity across the industry, and start with the problem, right? And what's the value of that problem? But one thing is for sure, there is an economic opportunity to really leverage technology to improve not just waste, but our entire business operation and sales. And at the end of the day, it's also really important to remember there's enough food to feed everyone in the world. Hunger is not a food problem, it's a logistics one. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.